Well, welcome everybody to another KOA pod. Welcome to all our regulars and all our newbies who might be joining us for the first time. Of course, you won't recognise the intro here because I'm Mike Bacon, aka Big Pork something, whatever that is that Heath calls me. But anyway, I'm introducing this today because after the shambles of the weekend, Heath's had to take a couple of days off to recuperate. On some staycation somewhere. It all got a bit too much for him, so he's not with us today. But fortunately, the good news for you is I am, which is, of course, is very much a step up. But there you go. Mr. Warren can't join us either. All got a bit too much for him. He's had to take time out as well. It affects us all, you know, these defeats, and it's all starting to get a bit tough. Fortunately, I was away playing golf. So I've caught up the highlights, but I did actually see the game. So that's why I'm in such fine fettle, because I didn't actually see it. And I now know why the Sir Bobby and Sir Alf statues are outside the ground, because if they were inside, I don't think the dear, wonderful ex-managers could cope with what they might be seeing right now. That was pretty poor on Saturday from what I hear. Anyhow, two people who did make it through what can only be described as I've seen the word shambolic used. That's a very strong word, but I have seen it used in one or two places. 5-2 defeat to Bolton is our main man, of course, our chief football writer. He's got more titles than you can throw a book of titles at. Chief football writer, top journalist, everything else I want to call him. Stuart Watson. Stuart, you survived the match on Saturday. Nice to see you. We'll have a little chat with you in a minute and fun. And of course, he's joined us by Roscoe Ross Halls, who was there taking videos of the Ipswich fans cheering in the 5th minute and scowling in the 6th. So he had a busy weekend anyway. I loved his game day video. I'll show you if you saw that, the Ipswich fans afterwards. One guy was brilliant. What does our midfield do, was his exact phrase, which is quite an extraordinary comment, really, because the midfield is supposed to be the life and soul of any team. But anyway, that's for another day. Stuart Watson, Ipswich Town 2, Bolton Wanderers 5. A few reflections, please.
Cool, that was quite the build-up, Mike. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
First things first, it's not a staycation. A staycation is when you visit places from your own home. Stop calling it staycations, everybody. You can go on holiday in the UK.
Good point, Stu. Thank you.
So I just wanted to get that out of my system. 5-2. It's not great, is it? I don't think we're all expecting to be sat here. I think Andy put his ratings out after the game on Saturday and said he wasn't expecting to be down in 3s and 4s at this stage of the new era. We thought it might take a bit of time to get going, but I didn't expect that sort of bigger hump in the road at this stage. Bolton are a good side. They've come up with real momentum. They've got the core of that team from last season in place, plus a few additions. They look like a team. They look like a collective. Ipswich Town looked what they are, a bunch of strangers. It was hard to see what the structure of the team was, and now we kind of pick the bones out of what the issues are and how quickly they can find some solutions to them, because the longer this goes on, the more it becomes a mental block, the more points you have to make up further down the line. I'm still not in panic mode at all at the moment. I'm still trying desperately to feel sort of upbeat about all of this, but the nature of that defeat, you're not human if it doesn't give you a few worries and concerns, that's for sure.
And I think, Stuart, that's possibly, you've hit the nail on the head there. With a good line there, the nature of the defeat, the nature of what happens. Lot of people very unhappy with body language and, just general sort of demeanour, as the 4th goal went in, or 3rd or 4th goal went in. I think people were looking for responses from players, and obviously it wasn't there, Stu.
It feels a bit like if this was the same team going again, we'd be talking about the characters not right, and Paul Cook was very quick to talk about the mindset and the character not being right and something sort of permeating through this football club. That was meant to have all changed this summer. From top to bottom, the club has completely changed. And Mark Ashton was at pains in his interview with Andy and I just last week to talk about how they've recruiting players of a certain character and having leaders across the pitch was meant to change all of that. They weren't meant to sort of fold in that way when setbacks within games come along, but they folded badly in that second half. The first half, again, you could look at it and go, well, it's 2-2. It's another game where there's positives going forwards. A few errors at the back sort of sullied it. But second half, they just fell to pieces and heads completely went. When that fourth goal went in, you're right, body language wasn't good. And that's got to change. Okay, Sam Morsey wasn't in the side and he can hopefully address that. But my word, Paul Cook's putting a bit of pressure on his shoulders. If we're Sam Morsey is clearly a good, experienced player, but now we're sort of building him up to be the saviour. And, we will not play like that when Sam Morsey's in the side. Well, no pressure, Sam. And then the question is, well, if they hadn't signed Sam Morsey with an hour and a half spare on deadline day, and that sounds like it wasn't a player they completely hanged their hats on getting, what would the answer have been then? So hopefully he is the answer. But one or two questions just starting to come up now as this poor start to the season continues.
And Roscoe, obviously you're doing the video. You chat to the fans afterwards. I mean, obviously you saw the game itself, so you can tell us a little bit of your thoughts on that. But I mean, obviously when you come out of games, it's always interesting to grab fans and hear what they have to say. And perhaps at the start of the year, even though we weren't winning, well, of course we haven't won any game, so that's not really a very good comment. But at the start, obviously when we're drawing games, fans were still fairly okay-ish. But I watched game day video this week, and although Ipswich fans are brilliantly loyal, they really are, and they'll give it a real chance. There's one or two now starting to get a little edgy about it all.
Yeah, I always enjoy, speaking to fans afterwards because, I know them personally as well. And yeah, some now, they're using it, the excuse, waiting for them to gel, give them time on the training ground. But, we had the international break, they had an opportunity to work on the training ground, what they need to do. And then lose 5-2 at home against Bolton is not what they want to see. And it wasn't a good performance. Understandable. There was boos at full time. I think there may be more booing at the result because we just lost 5-2 at home. I think that's what makes it worse is 5-2. I think if we lost against Bolton like 2-1 or something like that, it's still not great, but just the nature of the defeat just makes it even more worse. And yeah, I'm pleased that the fans didn't swear. They always are nice to that. So no beeping out. A few, S-H-I-T words were shouted out, but nothing else. But not a good afternoon. At one stage, I just closed my eyes and just look at the scoreboard and hope it wasn't 5-2, but it was. Not a good day at the office for the Blues.
I can picture it now, Ross. You looking at the scoreboard and closing your eyes and then opening it again and seeing, yes, it was still 5-2, which is very good. And I love the way you couldn't spell SIHT correctly, but that doesn't matter because I knew what you meant. What you meant. Don't worry. At least you got rid of the goalie, so you ain't got to worry about his name anymore. But I mean, now you've got SIHT. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But Stu, people left before the end. I mean, we'd had hoped we'd stop seeing that, but people were not flocking away. I don't know. I wasn't there, but were they flocking away, or was it just
I didn't notice a mass exodus. I'm sure there were some that left before the end. I have got an apology to make before we start. I did get something slightly wrong in my copy at the weekend. I talked about it being the first time since the Norwich game that Ipswich had conceded 5 goals at home, completely forgetting about the 5-2, another 5-2 home defeat to Southampton, which came a few months after that. The Norwich game was in the April 2011 at the back end of that season. And then the Southampton game was in the early stages, an August game. In some ways, some comparisons there because Southampton were a newly promoted side with real momentum. I think back to that game and Lallana and Ricky Lambert, were the kind of the men that took Ipswich apart that day. So, yes, of a similar era, but I just thought I'd correct that. But the reaction from the fans, I think it's understandable. I take it as the boos being what Ross said, that it's just an instant release of frustration at losing 5-2. I don't see it as a bigger a bigger show of frustration at anyone in particular. I don't suddenly feel like there's huge pressure on the manager or anything like that at this moment in time. I think it's become a bigger topic of discussion because of the scoreline on Saturday, and some little questions about, are we into the sort of Lambert Culverhouse territory with Cook and Liam Richardson? Obviously, with Wigan starting the season so well, with Richardson as manager, has kind of brought that to the forefront. Obviously, Cook's coaching staff is pretty inexperienced, with Gary Roberts still doing his badges, Ian Craney, Francis Jeffers. So just a few little things like that are starting to become topics of debate. I don't think there's this big groundswell of people talking about it at the moment. I think most people listen to what Mark Ashton had to say last week and understand that this is still early days of huge sea change, cultural change throughout the club. But there's no getting away from it. Ipswich have played Morecambe, they've played Bolton, they've played Cheltenham, 3 sides that have come up. They've played Newport in League Two. They've played 3 teams that finished in the bottom half last season in Wimbledon, Burton, and AFC Wimbledon, and they haven't won a football match. Now, gelling and individual mistakes and players settling in the area, all those things are valid reasons, but I still don't think that there's enough there to sort of mitigate not having a win on the board at this stage. So Paul Cook was given the budget to go and form this squad that should have been a little bit more oven ready, to use a quote from our Prime Minister talking about oven ready situations. It's this team should have, Wigan changed their whole team and look where they are at the moment. Morecambe had made just as many signings as Ipswich had on that first day. So it only goes so far to sort of excuse where Ipswich Town are at the moment.
A little Brexit reference there, Stuart. A little oven-ready deal. Yes, I like that. Very good. We mustn't bring politics into it, though, but I know exactly what you mean. No, you're right, Stu. I mean, look, I personally, I just think the players they have signed should be good enough, or should have been good enough by now to win a football match. I mean, and I think that's very much the thing. And I wish it had been Newport, quite frankly, for the second one of the season. I still look back on that as a huge missed opportunity. I know it doesn't really matter, but we might have drawn who knows who by. The whole season could have changed just by beating Newport, dependent on who we got in the next round, dependent on if we won that and got in the next round after that. But, well, it's not to be, is it? I mean, Roscoe, a few thoughts from you about it all. I mean, as Stu said, if at the start of the season we'd said, well, we'll get the middle of September and Town won't even won a game yet, we'd have all put off our chairs and laughed our heads off, kicking our feet in the air. But we're not.
Yeah. We're speaking off air, if we just got that win against Morecambe on the opening day, that would have been the perfect start we wanted. But we only just about got a draw in that game. Macaulay Bonne had to, on his debut, score in the 95th minute. But once again, we started so well in this game. We were 1-0 up in 5 minutes. Macaulay Bonne scoring. I thought, oh, here we go. We're going to have a really good day in the sunshine in Suffolk at Portman Road. 19,000 fans in attendance. It's going to be a good day. Our first win on the board. Unfortunately, that didn't last long. Bolton scored, make it 1-1. Then KVY, basically took out his man, the penalty. They went 2-1 up, and then we made it 2-2. And then, of course, we thought, okay, going to go into half-time, going to be, drawing this game. But then Bolton, killer punch, 3-2, half-time. And that's where it all fell apart. And, of course, Bolton then went and scored 2 goals, make it 5-2. And, yeah, that was it, really. The game was done and dusted. And, yeah, I just didn't know where we were going to get anything from that game. But, yeah.
Once again, we're in a sort of if, buts and maybes, coulda, woulda, shoulda situation. You looked at that stoppage time, 2-2, got it back to 2-2. The crowd were really behind them. They had a period of pressure. Macaulay Bonne at one end, side foots wide, a pretty, I wouldn't say a gilt-edged chance, but a very presentable chance for Ipswich Town. And from the subsequent goal kick, Bolton go and score. And again, we're going back to if they'd have scored the penalty at Burton, and if Wolfenden hadn't done this against Morecambe, and if Bonne hadn't missed his chance against Cheltenham. Ifs, buts, maybes. And you kind of reflect on, and I'm not for one instance saying it's going down this route at all, but you looked at the relegation season and that they were lots of fine margin defeats, and you keep going back, well, if, and so close, and if that had turned in this game, and when that happens consistently over a period of time, I think that sometimes points to some bigger underlying issues. They can't keep doing this. It will go one or two ways. Those moments will start to turn as the team gets fitter, as there's more chemistry coming in, or it will just keep happening. And they've got to try and sort out some of these things, because there's recurring themes here. As Ross says, this ability to kind of concede so quickly after scoring. You do the hard work, they get in front, and that's the third game in a row in front of their own fans where they've managed to concede within 3, 4, 5 minutes of scoring, and it just sucks the joy out of the air and brings all those sort of underlying anxieties bubbling back to the surface that everyone's carrying around on them because of what's gone on in years gone by. So there's some things to sort out here at the moment. For me, the problem's midfield. I mean, you touched upon it in that game day video. It's the centre of midfield. I know people look at it and go, 15 goals conceded in 6 games. It was the goalkeeper, it's the defence. It's a team game, football. And you said right at the very start, Mike, the midfield is your engine room. Whatever happens in midfield affects all parts of the team. And that Evans-Harper pivot at the bottom of midfield is just not got the right blend there for me. There's not enough. There's no one sort of tackling or breaking things up. And if you're not doing that, you've got to be damn good on the ball and creating chances and doing all of that. And I'm not sure that the forward side of their play is doing anywhere near enough to make up for the deficiencies defensively at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm not a great lover of 4-2-3-1, to be honest, but it seems to be quite popular with a lot of managers at all levels. So I'm not going to go against what they think. But I think if you're going to have, if you watch England with Rice and Calvin Phillips, if you want to take an example, they're not two of the show-stopping stars of English football, but they do such an effective job that it works. You have to have people who do that effective job. Harper and Evans at the start of the season, they seem to start okay for the couple of games I saw at the start, but it just seems to have drifted. I don't think Harper's a huge, tough tackling midfielder anyway. I'm not particularly sure Evans is, to be honest. But it's midfield is so important, as you say, Stu. But I suppose we've got to start fans. Roscoe, talking about Paul Cook's head. I mean, it's absurd. Obviously, right now you don't want to be getting rid of any managers now, for goodness sake. Imagine the chaos that would cause if a new guy came in. But it is being spoken about, Ross, isn't it, among fans you speak to?
Yeah, there's going to be some who, wants guarantee results straight away. We wanted to win every game at the start of the season, and which is, of course, we're Richard Town, we're in League One, and we've got 19 new signings. They're all superstars, but I think it is a bit ridiculous. I'm going to put it out there now. I think it's ridiculous to call for a manager's head this early on. 6 games in. I'm not going to use an example like Lincoln last year. They got into the playoffs and, they had a whole new team. Blackpool, we beat them 4-1 and they got promoted to the Championship. What will it do if you sack a manager and then a new manager comes in and went, I don't really like these players, and he's going to do a whole transition again. Okay, we're going to put all those in the bomb squad and then he has to bring his own players in January. I think it's just a ridiculous thing. But I understand as well, people are frustrated. They want that quick, they just want to win. I think that's the big thing. We just want to win, and it may cool down a little bit. When that first win happens, I think, hopefully it will start. But my problem is at the moment, we haven't got a plan B, which is the worry a little bit. But we'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah, the substitutions are interesting, aren't they? That seems to be a topic of debate there, that waited quite late to make the second substitution. Obviously, the first substitution had to happen early in that first half. I think most people agree that it was a bold call, but the correct call to take Kane Vincent-Young off after 21 minutes. Afolayan down the left for Bolton looks a real player. They've done really well to sign him permanently from West Ham, a part of their promotion last season. He was giving Ipswich no end of problems. There was a moment before all the goals started going in where Kane was caught quite high up the pitch trying to do what he does attack-wise. And then his recovery run, I thought he looked like he was running in quicksand. And I have to say that Kane Vincent-Young looks a shadow of his pre-injury self at the start of this season. Perhaps understandably, he's had the best part of 2 years out. And I hope that he does get back to somewhere near those sort of levels. But at the moment, he is short of those physically at the moment. He himself has said that there is still a lot more to come from him. So I think with him being in that physical state at the moment, being up against a player of that nature on a booking, had given the penalty away. That was the right call to take him off. Now, Paul Cook's reasoning for leaving his other 2 substitutions so late is that he feels that he's got a plethora of players out there at the moment that are just not fit enough to play his level of intensity to the end of the game. And he didn't want to use too many subs too early in case injuries happened or something else happened later in the game. So it wasn't until it was 5-2 that he made the next substitution. Tom Carroll eventually came on with the damage done. He replaced sort of Chaplin. So it was a holding midfielder for an attacking midfielder, and switched to a sort of a 4-1-4-1 formation. And that sort of settled things down a little bit. So, and then very late on, interestingly, Caden Jackson was the last attacking substitution used, leaving Joe Pigott and Louis Barry as unused subs. So Caden Jackson, who started pre-season with the under-23s and looked to be on his way out of the door. So that was an interesting one as well.
Yeah, it's substitutions are very difficult to sort of try and work out, aren't they, Stu? And where and when and all the rest of it. It's interesting we say about intensity, and perhaps the fitness. International break has come and just gone, of course, Stuart, and our record after international breaks is a shocker. It's almost as embarrassing as our cup runs over the last decade. We don't seem to come out of the traps after international break. Goodness knows what they do for 2 weeks, apart from sadly getting players injured.
Well, this adds to this feeling of it being a curse, doesn't it? Because so much has changed, and yet so little has changed. This kind of narrative that's been hanging over it, which, like you say, about going out in the first round of the cup so often to lower league opposition. It's happened again with Newport being rubbish after international breaks. It's happened again this weekend, and it is hard to kind of shake this feeling of here we go again that kind of is become so deeply ingrained in all of us. But for me, the fans more than play their part. They turned up to the ground and there felt like a real positive energy in the crowd pre-kickoff. When the team goes behind at certain stages, I think the crowd respond and try and lift them. I talked about in the first half when it went to 2-2, really getting behind them at that stage. But there's only so much you can that has to come from the crowd. I know it's always a bit of a catch-22, who lifts who. It's time the team and the club started giving something for people to really hold on to now. All of this sort of positivity has come from off the pitch, hasn't it? With the signings, with the owners being more visible, with Mark Ashton being so much more transparent. But at some stage, that hope has to come from what you see with your own 2 eyes on the football pitch. Fans are doing their job.
I think absolutely right. Ipswich Town fans have been terrific over decades. I've been following them for many, many years. Ipswich Town fans are some of the best, and they've received some pretty harsh comments from managers over the years, which I haven't been impressed with. And right now, as you say, they've bought into this at the moment, big time. I know loads of people who are back season ticket holders buying into the new project, if you want to call it a project, because they're so excited and they're still hanging on in there. But they're starting to text me, 1 or 2 texts me after a game, as that was carp, they said, I think it meant craps, Roscoe, but I think I spelled it wrong. And, it's, they have bought into it. But no, Ross, it's true though. I mean, you Chapter fans, fans have really bought into it, haven't they? And they're creating great atmospheres at Portman Road. They deserve those players to, and I think you're right, Stu, what comes first? Well, in my opinion, what comes first is really what should come first is the players on the pitch, but it doesn't feel that way, Ross.
No, there's going to be some fans who have probably bought a season ticket for the first time in many, many years because they're just excited about this new project, all these new signings, the owners, Mark Ashton being so open and happy to chat to, Andy and Stu, those 2 podcasts. As a fan myself, I was so excited. I'm excited for this season. I know this is my job, but as a fan, I'm so excited for this season. And obviously it's not started the way we wanted it to be. But, I think, as you said, for decades, Town fans have gone through the worst of the worst. I know we haven't gone into I know we went into administration in the mid-2000s, but we hadn't had the likes of Bolton and Wigan and Portsmouth who pretty much nearly went out of business. But we've had some really bad years where we've struggled and we've gone to a lot of 0-0s and not been enjoyable going to Portman Road. But the fans, as Stu said, the positivity going into the game on Saturday, the chanting, the great banners, and just the great atmosphere. 19,000 fans in League One at Portman Road, and yeah, it started well and it didn't finish well. And I understand the frustration, and I'm pleased that fans are still happy to chat to me after the game, because I'm sure there'll be some. There's David, who's a regular on the game day. He said it was going to be the first time he was going to leave a ground. He's 35 years of supporting Town. It's the first time he's going to leave early. But he said, nope, I've got to speak to Ross for game day. I want to show him my thoughts. But that just proves how, some fans already really had enough already, because they're not enjoying it. But yeah, still early days, but yeah, frustrating already.
Well, you ain't got to worry, Ross. If they don't speak to you, you can always contact me and Stewie on a Saturday night, can't you, Stu? Because if you want to contact me, we're down the pub or somewhere, just give us a call if you're sort of emotionally upset about fans not talking to you. But we understand, don't we, Stu? We'll be there for you.
I wish I was down the pub, my friend. I'm in an empty office having to write about it all each weekend. I hope that this was going to be a slightly easier season professionally for me. It becomes incredibly wearing. I looked at my timeline on Saturday night, and you've got sort of one group of people sort of, time for the tough questions, get your tough questions ready, Stu, and all that. And I think, right, here we go. And then you got another group of people, then you publish the Q&A of Paul Cook afterwards. Oh, typical local rag, can't wait to stick the knife in. And I just think, here we go again. I thought we might have a little bit of light relief from that. It's it's part of the gig, but I just there hasn't been any escape from that for such a long period of time, and I thought this year might be a bit of a break from that. But
wouldn't it be lovely, Stu? Wouldn't it be lovely if Town were top of the league and 5 points clear and it's only conceded 6 and scored 27, and every match report you could just wax lyrical? How wonderful that would be. People don't realise that as fans, as we're journalists as well as fans, it's a nightmare, isn't it? When I think people think we quite enjoy Town not playing very well, do they? Have no idea.
Every word, every spoken word, every written word just requires that much more mental thought, just thinking what is the when Mark Ashton was talking about, if we do this, what's the consequence of A onto B onto C? And that's our thought process all the time, in terms of trying to keep, trying to be fair to readers, to fans, to the club, to everybody. And you're kind of in this middle ground, just a constant sort of treading on eggshells with it all. It's quite draining, and I was hoping that we wouldn't be here in mid-September of this new era quite being back in this situation. The hope is that it is still early days, and that I keep trying to sort of objectively stand back and look at it and see how, this is a better group of players now. This isn't a rebuild of the Paulhurst variety with players that we were trying to convince ourselves would be good players that had come from below. These are players with careers behind them that on paper should be good players for this level. And there are a lot of players that aren't fully fit because the signings came late in the window through nobody's fault. And I think once the fullbacks are fit enough, particularly if we're talking about fitness, I think those two fullbacks need to be fitter. Coulson had COVID throughout pre-season. KVY, as we've talked about, still getting up to speed. They are massive to how Paul Cook plays. Now, you could argue, well, they're not fit. You try and do something different to get results in the meantime, but that's the way he wants to go. So I think when they get fitter, that will make a massive difference. When Morsey's in there, that will make a massive difference. Selena, by all accounts, has been an absolute joke in training, from a few people have told me on the inside. And
what you mean funny ha or extremely good? Well, I don't understand that. That's a very journalistic term. I don't understand, Stu.
Just been ridiculously good by all accounts.
Thank you.
That people expect him to be this star player in League One, but by all accounts, he's come here with that real sort of mindset to be that star man. So you get him in the team, you get Morsey in the team, you get the fullbacks fit, you get that blend right, and you still believe that it could click. And Ross mentioned Blackpool putting a new side together. That happened. Their run came very late last season. Bolton are another example on Saturday, who were, I think, 19th in the table in February last year in League Two, having built a new team in the summer. And Ian Evatt, a manager with a recent promotion on his CV at Barrow, turned it around, and they got that momentum, and they've carried it into a new level. Paul Cook, a manager, parallels there, manager with a promotion on his CV in the past, and it may take a bit of time to get them going. So you should just keep sort of clinging on to these little examples elsewhere that it could happen, and I still do think it could happen. But every game that slides by just makes the task that little bit harder, doesn't it?
Exactly, I think you're right. You touched on some good stuff there, Stu, particularly about Morsey and Selena being a joke. But you didn't mean a joke as in a joke. You meant as a joke, as in brilliantly a joke, as in brilliant. But when I used to go football training, they used to call me a joke, Stu, and it wasn't the same. I promise you, it was not the way you were inferring to Selena. But there, Ross. Okay, so Morsey gets in the side. Selena's fit and raring to go, and Harper's on one wing, and Selena's on the other. That's a good side, isn't it, Ross? I mean, there's some quality, some fantastic players there. The season's only still very, very young.
Yeah. I'll put another phrase. There'll be fire. That's another, young person phrase. There'll be fire when they play. I'm excited to see that.
What does that mean? We mean there'll be fire.
It'll just be amazing, unbelievable, all that jazz. With joke as well, it's also a bit of you're rubbish as well. You're a joke. Sometimes I'm a joke. I'm sure. Under your breath, you can normally call Ross a joke. But anyway, enough of that.
You do. Yeah. But yeah. but no, seriously, Ross. Selena's exciting, isn't he? And Harper we've already seen. And like I say, more, there's so much quality in that squad.
Oh, that's, to be fair, there's say Luco. Okay, last few podcasts, I was sort of saying what a rubbish player, but he was probably the only good standout player from Saturday. Bond got his goal, but yeah. When these players are fully fit and raring to go, you'd hope they will get firing and they'll gel together and get those wins on the. But yeah, I'm sure they will still. I don't know. I'm lost for words sometimes.
It's one thing having good players, and clearly Ipswich have got good players, but it's got to become a good team, hasn't it? And that's where Ipswich Town are at the moment. The squad is bigger than they wanted. I think both Ashton and Cook have kind of alluded to that Cook's always been clear that I work with small squads. I've always worked with tight-knit squads, and it's ended up being a 28-man first team squad if and when everybody's fit. They weren't necessarily banking on signing Morsey and Selena. They were bonus buys that they weren't even right up until the last minute. Ashton sort of said we didn't know if we were going to get them, so they had to kind of build their squad not knowing whether they were going to get those players. They did get them. Thankfully, they did, but it's now created a bit of a man management issue for Cook. And I'm sure there'll be a few players in that squad that were sold a certain vision that are now going, okay, the goalposts have moved a little bit here. Someone like Louis Barry, for example, was dropped down into League One and now thinking, where's my game time coming from? So that will be another little issue for Cook to deal with.
Absolutely, and there we go. There's big reflections on the weekend just gone, but of course now coming up Tuesday night, tomorrow night if it's Monday and you're watching this, today if it's Tuesday and you're watching this, and yesterday if you're watching it on Wednesday, which you probably won't want to listen to this next bit because obviously about to discuss. It's the EFL Trophy, and without doubt another competition we will tackle with relish, like we always have done the cup competitions. West Ham under-21s. Is that actually right that it's actually that only under-21s allowed to play in the West Ham team? Or is that like under-23s, you get 3 30-year-olds come back from injury? I mean, is this actually a genuine under-21 West Ham team, Stu? And if it is, are we going big? Are we going strong? Or are we going to sort of just sack this one out as well?
He'll be going strong, no doubt about it. It's been a change of tacks towards this one. When Paul Cook, I looked back on when he spoke to fans at a fans forum on July the 30th, and he was asked about what his approach would be to cup competitions because Ipswich fans are fed up of these early cup exits, and he was very honest at that and said that promotion and the league is the utmost priority. FA Cup not far behind that. I think he had a good FA Cup run at Wigan that culminated in a big game against Man City. So that's one that I think he likes. Then he said lesser competitions will be the Carabao Cup, and then finally the Papa John's Trophy, and sort of alluded to making changes in those competitions. And Cook took Chesterfield to the final of the EFL Trophy many years ago, and he said it was a great day out, but we lost. They lost 3-1 to Peterborough, and even though Chesterfield did actually go get promoted that season, he felt that it was a hindrance to that promotion push. So a few weeks ago, I'm sure Paul Cook would have been saying that this competition is a bit of an unwanted distraction, but all of a sudden you're 7 games in, you're without a win, and it becomes important just to get that first win on the board, to get up and running. I'm sure it will be a stronger team than he anticipated playing. Whether it changes from even stronger off the back of Saturday, I'm not sure. He did say post-match that he'd already picked the team last week. And I would imagine that he'll stick with that. I wouldn't imagine that he'll make changes to that just off the back of the 5-2. But it will be a strong team. We've just alluded to all the 28-man squad. It's not going to be a kids' team, that's for sure.
And Morsey's expected to play, is he, Stu?
Yes, he will definitely start. He makes his debut. Obviously, arrived with a 3-game suspension to serve. That is now that suspensions are competition specific. So he's got 2 more league games to serve with that suspension, but he can play in the Carabao Cup. So we get to see that. For me, is the biggest point of intrigue for this game, to see what Sam Morsey, the man who's being held up as the saviour that can be the glue that kind of starts binding this team together and starts cutting out the goals, what he's going to be like in this fixture. So
if you go strong, Ross, if Stu says he thinks Paul Cook will go reasonably strong, not super strong, but reasonably strong, what sort of names would you like to hopefully see on the old team sheet at 6:30 or whatever time it comes out?
Before I get into that, I want to just say, can someone tell Paul Cook it's not the Johnston Paint Trophy anymore? I know it doesn't really matter, but I'm sure Papa John's, the sponsorship people out there, probably not happy that he's calling that competition that.
Has he? I've noticed that. I thought he called it the Papa John's.
No.
It was probably the JPT when he got into the final, wasn't it? I don't know whether he was staying true to what it was called back then.
I think I prefer Johnston Paints myself, because I think that's more sort of. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a pizza, Stu. Don't get me wrong, no one likes a pizza more than me. Pepperoni, my favourite. But I mean, Johnston's Paints, a bit of DIY about it, hasn't it? Us DIY freaks that we all are in the sports department. We wouldn't hire anybody to paint our houses, but would we? Anyway, sorry, Roscoe, we take it away. You haven't named the team yet.
No, I would like to see Joe Pigott come in. I think that is one frustrating thing on Saturday. You got a man who scored 20-plus goals as soon last year, and he didn't even come on the pitch. It's back-to-back games. No, he did score against Wimbledon, didn't he? Ignore that. I'd like to see him come on just to play, just get some more minutes. As you said, Morsey. Now, the question is, do you stick with a goalkeeper? Do you drop? You're not really dropping Bolton, are you? Because it's a cup competition. Do you bring in Holy? Do you bring in the other goalkeeper's name that I'm not going to say? And then defence, George Edmondson, I'll probably give him a game again because he just needs that minutes. He's coming back with his fitness. Do you want me to name the whole team?
Well, not really, Ross, because I think you probably get it wrong. So that's a completely pointless exercise. But I mean, you're well. Don't get me wrong. You're welcome to have a stab by all means. But it's pretty pointless. But go on.
No, I'll let Stu, because he would probably do a better team than me. I'm just chucking names.
There's definitely a balancing act between bedding in your preferred 11. If you've got a preferred 11 in mind, and we're talking about getting some relationships going, do you go again? Let some of these players get Saturday out their system, start trying to gel this team, considering you've been talking about it. But on the flip side of that, you've got a double-edged sword of keeping other players happy, and also managing injury risks as well. So which way do you look at it? Do you look at a second game in 4 days puts a bit more fitness in the legs of these players and gets them up to that level of intensity that Cook wants? Or do you see them as injury risks? Like Edmondson, for example, would be a prime example. They've held him back because he arrived with this unspecified injury. You've played him Saturday. Now, do you go on then, go and get another 90 minutes in your legs? Or do you think he's in the red zone, as the sports scientists would say, and we can't afford for him to break down? And there's plenty of others in that category. Wes Burns, 2 assists at the weekend. He's got a nagging Achilles problem, which sets alarm bells ringing for me. Chaplin played the opening day, sat a few out for injury, came back into the team at the weekend. Does he need another game or does he need a rest? Those are the big calls that Paul Cook's going to have to make on this game.
So, Roscoe, you said Pigott. And
do your 11, Ross.
Go on, do your 11, Ross, because and then we can compare it perhaps on the next KOA podcast.
Okay, well, I think because I'm looking at this now where we haven't got a midweek game next week, so you've got to think we've got West Ham, then we've got Lincoln, then we've got a break, then we've got Sheffield Wednesday, and then we've got Doncaster. So we ain't got that worry of like, okay, we've got Saturday, Tuesday. We only got that for this week. So I think I'm going to go with Holy in goal. I think he deserves an opportunity just to play. I know, in a way, you're dropping Bolton, who just conceded 5 goals, but I just think it's an opportunity for Holy to play. Then Janoy, right back. I think maybe KVY just needs that extra rest, and we'll see how he gets on. I think Emerson, I'll start him again alongside Wolfie, and then Matt Penny at left back. I think with Coulson, he's still trying to get that fitness up. Then Morsey, Tom Carroll alongside him. I think maybe Evans and Harper just needs a moment for them just to have a little break there. And then Aluko to start again. And then I'll start Barry. I would start Barry for this game because I'm sure Aston Villa at some point are going, you're going to play him. We just loaned him out. And I'm seeing actually some Aston Villa fans already mentioning, what's the point of sending Barry to you if you're not going to play? I'd rather have him in our under-23s. And then a little surprise here. I'm actually going to give an opportunity for Idris El Mazouni to play. I know maybe on paper it doesn't look like a strong team, but it is a strong team. But just give him some minutes for him and then play Joe Pigott up front.
There's a bit of strength in that, Ross. That's very good. We'll perhaps we'll reflect on that later in the week. I'm sure it will be absolutely nothing like the team that is plus play tomorrow. But it's a good. Doesn't really matter. And
I'd be getting Bolton in again. I think. The time where there's no room for sentiment is here now, and I think you've brought in Bolton to be your first choice goalkeeper. Looked a little bit nervy at times, maybe not to the levels of Plagkey nervy at the weekend, but he's ultimately conceded 5 goals. Look, it's not going to be great for Plagkey, who's going to be feeling probably pretty low at the moment, having gone from starter to not even being in the 18. Thomas Holy is a popular character. I don't know whether that was a bit of a reward for him to stick him on the bench or whether it was to protect Plagkey. You've got all these man management issues now with the 3 senior goalkeepers, but you've signed Walton to be your man now. Goalkeepers can rattle out games, no problem at all. I'd be going with him again all day long. And then it's difficult because I thought Wolfenden had done all right in the game prior to the international break. But if Burgess and Edmondson are your preferred 2 centre-halves going forward, which it looks like, then you've got to start bedding some of these partnerships in at some stage, be it the 2 centre-halves, the 2 midfielders, your 2 left-sided players. At some stage, you have to start settling on some of these guys. So, I would like to see quite a few of them from the weekend go again, to be quite honest. Morsey's obviously in there. Who does he see as his preferred player to play alongside Morsey? Is it Lee Evans, who was Morsey's teammate at Wigan? Tom Carroll got a name check last weekend on Friday for having been outstanding in training over the 2-week international break. So that says to me that he was earmarked for this game. I think Ross is probably right. A Carroll-Morsey central sort of midfield duo. And if they play well tomorrow night, then they may even carry that into the game at Lincoln on Saturday. Who knows?
Well, certainly, Cook's given some of these players a few matches to claim the shirt, hasn't he? I mean, he hasn't get mucking around too much. So so there we go. So that's West Ham Tuesday night under 21. So that's something to look forward to, and perhaps we'll be reflecting on this podcast perhaps next May when we're all at Wembley for the final, and Ross's team selection that night. Back at Portman Road when Town got their first win, 7-0 or something like that. And we're thinking Ross's team was exactly correct. But anyway, so we look forward to West Ham here tomorrow night. Before we come to the end of the what's been an outstanding podcast, I'm sure you agree. And if you don't, well, I'm sorry. Just one of the things to of course, this little change of tact here because Town's under 23 manager, Mr. Kieran Dyer, of course. I don't know if you're aware, if you are aware, fans out there, he's on the SAS Celebrity SAS Channel 4, whatever it is, jumping off rocks and diving into the lakes and all sorts of horrendous things. And I caught up with him last night. I watched it last night and then caught up with him afterwards. And apparently next week is going to be his big event. We'll look forward to that. But has any of you seen any of this SAS Celebrity Challenge?
Yes, it's extreme. I don't know how some of them don't break down. I'm sure some of them do. But Who Dares Wins in it. That's what it's called.
That's what it's called. Yes, Celebrity Challenge. Who Dares Wins. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Ross. I'm a big fan of the show. I've spoken to Kieran on and off about it for a number of months now. I was very excited to see him in action. Limited airtime is normally a good sign that someone's going to go pretty deep, and I'd have backed Kieran to go deep in this. He's still fit as a fiddle. I think he's mentally, I think he's really strong. He's surprised that he's changed a lot of people's opinions on him as a person since his book came out and stuff he's done since on TV. So I'm looking forward to seeing his big episode. Normally they centre an episode around sort of one or two people each week, and so next weekend, looking forward to that.
Absolutely, they do seem to. I mean, like Jack. I can't remember his second name. It's a bit like Halaji. Is it Quigley? Quiddlemore? Jake Quiddler. What's his name?
Quickenden.
That's the one. He got a lot of attention yesterday, and then he hurt his arm and he went home. So that was a bit strange. I hope Kieran doesn't get too much attention next week. We hope he does go deep into the series. You say he's become quite a brave little chap. He's really went a celebrity. Get me out of here, eating slugs and rabbits and horses and whatever else he ate, bitumen flies, whatever they're called. And then now he's doing this. But if you don't see it on Sunday nights, this SAS Who Dares, it is great. Well, I love it. And good luck to Kieran. Let's hope he does go all the way, Stu, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to that. And then hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to Kieran about his whole experience on there as a whole when it all comes to an end. I've asked him to do that, so I'm saying it's now on air, Kieran. I'm holding you to it. You said you'd have a little chat with us when it's done. So
he will do. I'll drop him. He must do, because unless he gets sort of too tough and hard for us all we're too scared to interview him because he's suddenly SAS. But I mean, no, it'll be great to speak to him. Right, look, this has come to the end of the podcast. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, everyone else who enjoys listening to KOA or KOA Army and friends out there, I hope you enjoyed this. We're obviously desperately looking forward to Ipswich Town getting that first win, maybe away against West Ham tomorrow night. We'd be delighted if it was their second win of the season at Lincoln on Saturday. Roscoe, a few final words.
Hope you enjoy your pepperoni pizza if you have one tonight, Mike.
Thank you very much. Fine. That's a fine finale. But I'm not having pepperoni pizza tonight. No, I think I've actually got fajitas, Stu, which is always very nice.
Fajitas.
What is it?
Fajitas. Yeah. Oh, good. Enjoy.
Well, I know what I eat them and they're tasty. So we don't discuss the name too much, but they're very nice. What have you got for tea tonight, Stu? Anything particular?
To be confirmed. To be confirmed.
Right. Okay.
I'm not someone who meal plans days in advance. It's a bit like open the fridge at
10 to 6.
See what's going on. Yeah.
Stu, final couple of words from you before we go.
Doesn't it say a lot that we're talking about a Papa John's Trophy Group A opener against West Ham U21s as being a really important game for Ipswich Town? That's quite a sobering thought, isn't it? Really, but that's where we're at this moment in time. Let's hope they just get that win tomorrow night, and it all turns from here. Come on.
Yeah, come on, boys. Let's come on. You can do this. Ipswich fans will be there cheering loud and proud. We've got a good squad there. We've just got to try and keep the faith for a little bit longer. We're sure it's all going to come. I'm Mike Bacon. I hope you enjoyed listening to me waffling away here in place of Mr. Heath, who will be back with you later in the week if he hasn't stayed on his staycation not staycation, whatever it's called, any longer than he needs to. So, yeah, and finally, of course, thanks so much for listening to the Kings of Anglia podcast. Hope you enjoy it very much. And of course, big thanks to our sponsors who we're always very grateful for, Manscaped. And, of course, Never Lost at Home, which is the fantastic new show at the New Wolsey starting this week, I believe, 16th, which is fantastic. So check out their website to buy tickets for Never Lost at Home, the story of the 1981 UEFA Cup winning side. What a great season that was. And you've already probably heard the podcast with some of the actors involved in that. And so get your tickets for that as well. Thanks to them for their loyalty to KOA Podcast. Show some loyalty to them and go and enjoy the show. And we'll speak to you again.